Washington, you're so great. You're a fantastic leader. You led us to victory.
Heck yeah, I did.
General Washington kept climbing the army ranks to lead the country, didn't you?
Heck yeah, I did.
General Washington became quite famous for being such a good leader.
Heck yeah, I did.
Washington led many troops to victorious battle during the Revolutionary War. He was well known for his perseverance and great leadership skills. Many people joined the war because of him, and he led the people during the Battle of Yorktown, where they won the war. He gained a lot of popularity, and the people loved him during and after the war.
The Articles of Confederation were awful for our country. They did nothing to help us at all. And that's why we need to ratify the Constitution, which is going to fix all our problems. Because it's so much better than the Articles of Confederation, which failed to stop rebellions, failed to fix poverty, failed to govern our country in general. And that's what the Constitution plans to do.
After the Revolution, it was clear the United States needed a much stronger central government. The Constitutional Convention was held to talk about the problem. During the convention, Washington was chosen as the president of it. He kept trying to get the Constitution ratified, sending many letters, persuading people to support the Constitution. He gained many allies through this process, and by adopting it, he would have had a great chance of being president.
I think that George Washington had some good ideas about the future of our country as general of our army. I think that he would make a good fit for our president.
During the Constitutional Convention, George Washington had some great ideas. He would make a great president. His leadership skills would help people love him.
George Washington, I really think you need to run for president. Your leadership skills are too good.
That isn't going to happen. I'm not one for government. It's just too risky.
Come on, it would be really good for our country.
I mean, people want it, I guess.
And now, the first president of the United States of America, George Washington.
Thank you for electing me. I have plans to make this country better. I just want to make sure that we have no arguments. I think that party systems will be just an awful idea. I just want to thank everyone. Cool.
Although he was hesitant to run for office at first, in 1789, the first presidential election, George Washington was elected as the President of the United States. With 69 electoral votes, he won the support of each participating elector. Presidency was a lot different than he thought, but he did a lot of good things considering he was the first ever President of the United States of America.
I think our Constitution should be interpreted loosely because it needs to change as we go along. I disagree. I think it needs to be interpreted really strictly because that's the way it was written, and we don't want to do anything different than that.
I propose a 5-point plan. I know, it's not in the Constitution, but I think it'll make our country better.
It's going to make it awful. It's not in the Constitution. That's the whole reason. Everything needs to be strict. I'm no Federalist. I'm a Democratic Republican.
I'm a Federalist. I'm no Democratic Republican.
After being elected president, Washington had the task of finding people for his cabinet. He had to choose carefully because his cabinet members will be a great help during his years of presidency. He had met Hamilton and Jefferson in his early years and decided that they would be best fit for the job. He chose Jefferson to be as Secretary of State and Hamilton as Secretary of Treasury. Though they were great at their jobs, they weren't great at working together. Alexander and Thomas had very different views on how the country should be run and how to interpret the Constitution. This led to the formation of the Federalists and Democratic Republicans, also known as the first political parties.
George Washington wasn't perfect. He went through several problems throughout his terms, such as his cabinet not getting along. Hamilton and Jefferson had many differences and never agreed with each other, which in the end created political parties. He thought that political parties would divide the country when at the time they needed to be united more than ever. Being such a new country, George didn't have an example before him, so he had to create his own example on how the country should be run. He knew for sure that he didn't want to be like Britain, and Britain was the only example he had, which created some problems. So, George, what's your thoughts on other countries?
I think we need to stay out of their problems, because their problems are their problems, they're not ours, and we need to stay neutral. Staying neutral is the best thing to do.
So, George, are you going to run for a third term?
Running for a third term isn't the best thing to do, because we don't want to be like a king or anything, so I hope the other presidents do that too.
George Washington left behind many precedents that are used by presidents today. Since he was the first president, he was able to give an example to the ones that followed him. One famous precedent that is used is only staying 2 terms. Almost all presidents follow this. The reason that Washington only stayed for 2 is because he didn't want to act like a king, so he declined the 3rd term and only stayed for 2, even though many wanted him to stay for 3. Another thing he did was stay neutral and not get involved with any other countries. The only problem was not many presidents followed him by doing so, only the next few did.
Overall, George Washington did a lot of great things for our country as the first president. He had his faults, but he was the first president, and with a new country, that was expected. Without him as our president, our country wouldn't be the same.
George Washington loved dogs. He had 36 hounds. George Washington also died because of a cold.
Achoo! Alexander Hamilton liked to dabble in poetry in his free time. Alexander Hamilton died in a duel.
Thomas Jefferson lived to stargaze, almost as much as he loved books. Thomas Jefferson also was a food lover.